Welcome to the video. Today, I'm here to talk about the books that I read in 2024, specifically for my 10-year reading challenge. This is sort of my one tradition that I have on this channel, where every year since 2023, I have made a video talking about some books for my priority TBR, and I will explain the concept behind it to you now. So basically, I have had my Goodreads account since 2013. And in 2023, I thought it would be a fun idea to take all of the books that are still on my Goodreads TBR unread that I added in 2013 and to try to read them before the year was over, basically before they reached the 10-year mark of sitting there unread. That year, I did that. I made a list of those books and I attempted to check them off. And then I decided to do it again in 2024, where I found all the books that I hadn't read that were left on my TBR that I added from 2014 and tried to read them before the end of 2024. So that's what I'm here to talk about today. I will be going over the books that I read this past year for this challenge, and then I'm also going to tell you about the books that I have for 2025/2015. Basically, the goal is just to be chipping away at the books that have been on my TBR the longest. I just think it's fun. I like doing it. If you want to join me, you can just make a list of the books that have been on your TBR. There are so many sounds happening right now. I don't know if you can hear them, but they are driving me freaking nuts. I'm already getting frustrated and we're only 5 minutes in. Okay. Everything's fine. If you want to join along with me, you can make a list of some of the books that have been on your Goodreads or Storygraph TBR the longest, or maybe just the books that you've owned for a really long time. And if you want to read those along with me this year, that'd be super fun. Let me know in the comments, what book have you had for the longest? Because I think that is so fun and interesting. I'm curious. Let's get into it. So first, I want to talk about the books that I unfortunately did not get to in 2024. And thankfully, there are only 3 books. It is not surprising to me that I did not get to finish every book off the list, and I'm gonna cut myself a little bit of slack. I'm most likely just going to roll them over into the next year and keep working on them. These are the books of shame, even though I'm not actually ashamed. It's just funny to call it that. The first book is Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen. It just sort of slipped my mind. There's no reason, I'm not dreading reading this book or anything. I just did not have the time and I did not get to it. I did read a lot of classics this year, or at least it felt like I did. So I kind of feel like I was a little bit classiced out. However, I will definitely be reading this in 2025. So yes, Sense and Sensibility. She did not get read. I'm sorry, I still love you. The other book that unfortunately did not get around to this year is The Complete Tales and Poems of Edgar Allan Poe. And this book is freaking huge. It's quite large, and it is an anthology. I made it 14 pages in. I was trying to spread it out. I was trying to kind of make it like I'll read like a poem every day sort of thing. But alas, that did not happen. I like what I read so far, but I just didn't quite get there. So we will be continuing on with this book in the next year. And then lastly, the only Les Mis by Victor Hugo. I'm sure I touched on this in a previous video. You might notice this is a different edition than the one I held up last year. The other one was not jiving with my brain, and I did some research on the different editions, read some samplings of a few different ones, and I really like the way that this one is translated. It works so much better with my brain. And as you can see, I have been reading it. I have been working my way through this bad boy. I am currently on page 297, which is better than the last time I updated you on it. So I have been reading this. I took a bit of a break in December because I was depressed, but I'm really excited to be getting back to it. I just got the audiobook for this specific version. The lighting changed. Oh my gosh, it's so sunny now. I love sunlight, you guys. Sunlight is amazing. Can you tell that it's winter? So yes, Les Mis, I'm still working on it. I'm actively reading this. I don't know if this counts as a I didn't finish it book, because true, I didn't finish it, but I'm actively working on it. Like, I am in the midst of this book. and I am really liking it a lot. I'm finding it very enjoyable. And you know what's kind of funny is this book actually was continued over from 2023. This book has been on every single one of my lists, but you know, it's a big one. It's a really big book, and sometimes things don't go according to plan, and that's okay. So we will be continuing with this one. Let's carry on and talk about some of the books that I did finish in 2024. Number one, another book that was carried over from 2023 is Emma by Jane Austen. I loved this book. This book was so good. I wound up reading it and also listening to the audiobook. I found that whenever I pick up a classic after not reading any classic literature for a long time, especially from like this sort of time period, it takes me a little while to get into the sort of like cadence of the dialogue. So listening to it on audiobook really put me in the sort of headspace where I felt like I could really enjoy this. This was so fun. It's one of those books where, like, even though it was written so long ago, it still feels very relevant and applicable to life now. Like, I think everybody knows a friend who is just kind of meddling in everybody's business and putting their nose where it doesn't belong. That's just what this book is. It's like the drama is so engaging and fun. Emma as a character is kind of annoying, but you like feel for her. Like, I don't know, she's not a perfect person, and she's so interesting to read about. Not like this is a surprise to literally anyone, but Jane Austen is a fantastic writer. And yeah, I am really excited to read Sense and Sensibility this year because I had so much fun with Emma. And yeah, currently this is my favorite Jane Austen book. It was great. I would read it again. I would recommend it. I still have not seen the new movie, even though I definitely should. Next up, we have White Fang by Jack London. I have thoughts and feelings about this book. Yeah, I was a little bit hesitant about this going in just because I had heard that it was sort of a harrowing survival tale from a wolf's perspective. And while I love animals, I struggle a lot with animal cruelty and animals being hurt in any form. That is just a huge trigger for me and something that I do not like reading about. Yeah, so my biggest problem with this book was that I was not expecting there to be so much racist and like white supremacist undertones. And not even really undertones, like it was very blatant at some parts. It was harrowing in a way that I did not enjoy, that I wasn't expecting, that was just very difficult for me to read about. I do not like it. Like, I did not like it. It might be unfair to hold a book that was written in, 1905 to modern standards, but that doesn't change the fact that this made me like extremely uncomfortable. Yeah, I didn't like it. I didn't think it was well done. I did not think that it held up at all. I personally don't want to write off classic literature completely because it's from a different era, but this was just like a bit too much for me. It's a book about a wolf. A wolf. Why is a wolf thinking about how white people are superior? That is stupid. Like, even outside of being frustrated that I was forced to read white supremacist bullshit, the fact that it's from a wolf's perspective makes even less sense. A wolf is not thinking about the color of people's skin, and it just makes me mad. I was reading this, I was rolling my eyes. Basically, the too long didn't read of this is I don't recommend it. I don't think there is much value in reading this book, personally. That's okay. Sometimes you say, this kind of sucked, and then you move on with your life. I'd also like to mention that I'm not the only person who thinks this. I did a little bit of research, and there's a lot of info out there. And if you are interested, you should look it up, because I'm not an expert. I just personally didn't like this for that reason. Honestly, it might be like my least favorite book that I read out of this year, just because of how disappointed I was also. I'm gonna stop talking about this now. Goodbye, White Fang. Okay, on to the next. The next one is actually more like 7 books in one because I read the entire Chronicles of Narnia this year. To be honest, I have mixed feelings. There are 7 books in this chonky volume, and I feel kind of differently about each individual one. I also read them pretty much one after another. I feel like some of my memories about what each individual book is about kind of just blend together, so I don't really want to talk about them too much individually. So as a whole, I gave it 3 stars because I thought it was pretty good, but it also irritated me in some parts. I read them in order of like when they take place in the story, not in terms of publishing, which is The Magician's Nephew. I thought it was pretty good. It was a pretty good start. I liked that it kind of gave the backstory into the world of Narnia. And then I read The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, which is the only one that I had read previously. And I remembered really liking it as a kid, but I never felt inspired to read the rest of the series for some reason. I still thought this was really fun, but it also just made me realize that C.S. Lewis is kind of goofy. He made Santa Claus canon in his fantasy world, and that's just really funny to me. And then after that, I read The Horse and His Boy, which I didn't really like that much. I thought it was okay. I liked the talking horse. I thought he was pretty cool. I can't remember his name. And then I read Prince Caspian, which if I'm gonna be honest, I don't think I remember very much about. Yeah, this one is kind of a blur to me. I don't remember it very well. I think I felt like it was just kind of middle of the road. And then I read The Voyage of the Dawn Treader, which I actually did like. I liked that because it kind of had like ocean-faring, piratey sort of vibes, and I love a good ocean, like ship sailing book. And then after that is The Silver Chair, which I listened to an audiobook, and the audiobook was read by Patrick Stewart. By the time I got to The Silver Chair, I was like, oh god, I'm still reading this series. I don't know, it's like something about the way he writes, and again, these are also written for children, so I think maybe part of it is like he kind of is talking to you like you don't understand anything he's talking about, and I found that a little condescending. I feel like even as a child, I would have found that condescending. But anyways, The Silver Chair, 2 stars. Did not really like it, aside from Patrick Stewart. And then it just goes downhill from there, because then I read The Last Battle, which I actively disliked. This ending made me so mad. I did not like it. It's just kind of one of my least favorite tropes of all time, mixed with something that is just shockingly misogynistic. I'm gonna insert a little spoiler warning here and just skip ahead if you don't want this spoiled for you. So basically, at the end of the Narnia series, it turns out that a bunch of the kids are dead. They were like hit by a train or something, and they're dead. Aslan is like, oh, well, you guys can all go to heaven, basically. That's just like Narnia forever. But Susan can't because she likes makeup and boys. So Susan is not allowed to go to heaven, and Susan's gonna go to hell. And it's like, are you what? First of all, I hate the, oh, it turns out that you're dead trope. I know this book has been out for a very long time. This series has been out for a very long time. It was probably not a tired, exhausted, overused trope by when this came out, but at my point in time reading it, I did not appreciate having to sit through this entire series only for that to be the ending, and for Susan to get sent down to hell simply because she likes eyeliner. Also, Aslan. By the end of this series, I was so freaking tired of hearing about Aslan all the freaking time. I know that this book has a lot of Christian allegory, and personally I knew I was not going to pick up on most of that, but it is very clear that Aslan is like a Jesus sort of figure. Him being a Jesus figure is not what bothered me though. It was just mostly that we had to hear about him all the time and about how great he was and about how cool he is. I just got sick of it, honestly. It was so repetitive. So yeah, that's Narnia. I gave it 3 stars because I didn't hate it. Like, while I was reading it, I was like, okay, I'm getting into this. That ending pissed me off so much. All of the fond memories of reading this are now tarnished. I am glad that I have C.S. Lewis context for the Tolkien C.S. Lewis memes that I see on Pinterest. you know, that's a good thing that came of this. I don't know if I count this as 1 book or as 7 books. Emotionally, I felt like I had read 7 books by the time I finished this volume, so I'm done talking about Narnia now. The last book that I read off this list for 2024 was Liar, Temptress, Soldier Spy by Karen Abbott. This is a nonfiction book about 4 women who went undercover during the Civil War, and they are 4 very different stories. There's 2 on each side of the Civil War, I guess, that you read about. I just found it really interesting. Even though some of them are, you know, not really good people or doing good things, it was still intriguing to hear about their stories. My favorite one to read about was Emma, who went undercover as a man named Frank during the Civil War, and her story was really cool. I really enjoyed that. I just thought this was a neat read. I hadn't read anything like it before. I like how the 4 stories were sort of interwoven, so it was told chronologically and not split up by story. I liked the way that it was written. I thought it was really cool how you could be reading about 4 different people and what they were all sort of doing at the same time. I read it really fast on audiobook. Once I started, I just could not stop. It was very interesting. I don't typically like to rate nonfiction because it feels really weird to be rating things that actually happened, but I really did like this book. Okay, that's everything that I read in 2024 for this challenge. Now, introducing the books that I will be reading in 2025 from 2015. So 2015 was the year that I graduated high school, the year that I started college, and so I feel like some of these book choices sort of reflect books I was interested in at the time, and also things that I had been learning about in my senior year of high school, and also maybe a couple recommendations from professors or people that I met in college my first year. I just think it's really interesting how the books that I was adding to my Goodreads in 2015 are kind of reflective of what was going on in my life at the time. So I like to, you know, mention that because I think it's cool. I actually only have 6 books left over from 2015. Most of the ones I added from back then, I have actually already read. So I'm definitely including the ones I didn't finish from 2024. There's plenty of room for them. I actually also do not own a lot of these books yet, so I will be putting the image on the screen. Also, quick disclaimer, I don't know a lot about these books because I haven't read them and it's been a very long time since I was initially interested in them. So if I get things wrong or leave out very important details, it is simply because I do not know. I'm sure I will, you know, correct myself in the future. Or you can feel the need to correct me down below, but please don't spoil anything. I've managed to make it 10 years without getting spoiled for these books, and I'm not about to start now. So yeah, book number 1 that I will be reading in 2025 is A Tree Grows in Brooklyn by Betty Smith. So this is a coming-of-age story at the turn of the 20th century. That just seems like something that I would really love. I've heard this compared to Kill a Mockingbird, which is one of my all-time favorite classics that I read in high school, and I really think that this book was one that one of my high school teachers recommended to me. It's almost 500 pages. I'm like really expecting to really love this. A lot of my Goodreads friends have rated this very highly. I'm just really excited to get around to it. Next up, the only other one that I physically own is Carry On by Rainbow Rowell. This is a signed copy of Carry On by Rainbow Rowell. I think at the time I was so excited to read it that I got kind of overwhelmed and put it off. Back in 2015, really loved Fangirl. This was one of my all-time favorite books in 2015, especially reading it being the same age as the characters and just really, really relating to the struggle. If you're not familiar, Fangirl, the main character, Kath, is obsessed with this series called the Simon Snow series. One of the books in the Simon Snow series is called Carry On. So basically, Rainbow Rowell wrote one of the books that canonically exists in this universe. I love when books have a kind of weird meta like that. I think there are actually more of these out now. I don't know how I'm gonna feel about this now. It's been a very long time, admittedly, since I have read a Rainbow Rowell book. It really says a lot about what world we were living in in 2015, and a lot has changed since then. Yeah, we'll see how it goes. The next book is Brain on Fire by Susanna Cahalan. This is a nonfiction and a memoir, and I really truly do not know very much about this book. I know that it is very readable. I've heard a lot of good things about it. I'm pretty sure this was recommended to me by my freshman year psychology professor. I'm excited to read it. I don't feel like I can talk about it very much currently because I don't know very much about it. I like that it's a nonfiction. I feel like most of the books on my list the last few years have been fiction books, so it's nice to have a couple of nonfiction thrown on for this year. I'm excited about that. After that, we have The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. This book has been highly recommended to me. I know that it is going to probably break my heart and crush my soul. I've heard that there's a very strong sister-sibling dynamic, and anything with a strong sibling dynamic just like really gets me. But I know Kristen Hanna is super popular. I'm sure it's for a reason, and I feel like it is time that I sort of break that barrier and just read one of her books. The next book is This House is Haunted by John Boyd. This book is sort of meant to be reminiscent of one of those classic ghost stories. I love that kind of thing so much. I'm pretty sure this takes place during like Victorian era, which is one of my favorite historical settings to read about. And I love a haunted house story. I think this might be the one that I'm the most excited about because I freaking love haunted houses. I've never read a haunted house book that I did not like, at least not that I can remember in this precise moment. Okay, the last book that I will be reading in 2025 is The Witches by Stacy Schiff. This is another nonfiction book that is about the Salem witch trials, and I have already started listening to this on audiobook. I was kind of hoping to fill the void after I finished Liar, Tempter, Soldier Spy. I feel weird talking about it because I have technically already started it, but it's written very well. It's very descriptive. It's not just a textbook. I've always been very fascinated by the witch trials and witchcraft in general. Yeah, I'm sure it won't be like super easy to read. I'm expecting there to be some dark shit in there because, you know. So yeah, let's see. We got quite a few books, as well as 4 others that I am not currently in possession of. But yeah, we got a good reading year ahead of us. With that, I would like to say thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for being here. If you made it this far, I especially appreciate you. If you want to like or subscribe, that would be super cool. If you want to leave me a comment, I love reading comments. If you want to let me know what books are you just really hoping to get to in 2025, I'm so interested. I would love to hear. And if you've read any of these books, let me know your thoughts because I love to hear them. Yeah, with that, I'm gonna go. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye. Here's Otis. You're a good boy. Okay, bye for real.